Every time the possibility of studying Latin has come up in conversation between myself and my girlfriend, she is uniquely hostile to the possibility. She reacts as if I'm talking about cheating on her, as if this is a project, a passion, an interest that would really seriously imperil the long-term future of our relationship. And in the past, that seemed a little bit kooky to me. But today, as I was buying these books, I bought these at a bookstore, didn't order them off the internet, it really kind of clicked for me why that is. Like, okay, at first glance, you think, if your boyfriend is learning Spanish, this opens the door to the temptation of infidelity with a relatively numerous population living within the city of Los Angeles, living within the city of New York, in Europe, in South America, globally. You know, Spanish, it's a language spoken by so many people, and just the distribution of those people. Is there any city in the world in which your boyfriend might not be tempted by a Spanish-speaking woman, right? So Spanish, I can see the threat. But what if your boyfriend happens to be this dude who has already studied Cambodian, who has already studied Thai, who has already studied Laotian, who has already studied Japanese and Chinese? Like, why would it be a step too far for him to study Spanish also? Or why would it be a step too far for him to study ancient Latin? Today it clicked for me. Today it clicked. And she's right. Like, I don't even know if she really reasoned this all the way through, but she's right. You see, Latin is more of a threat because, while learning Chinese, this is a population of more than 1 billion, I don't know, more than 500 million women, whatever it works out to be, right? Okay. But it's not making the horizon broader that matters. Like, it's not as if the number of women who speak English is so scarce to begin with that adding an extra 500 million women who speak Chinese would in any way be statistically significant. No, it's not the broadening of the horizon that matters. What matters is that Latin is the kind of language that makes me lower my standards. See what I'm saying here? If I'm studying Spanish, and this is relevant to Latin, because my feeling is if I'm going to do modern Spanish, I might as well do ancient Latin at the same time anyway. I might as well do both, and studying one informs and enriches your study of the other. Okay. If I meet a woman who speaks Spanish as her first language, that doesn't make me lower my standards in any way. I don't hold her to a lower standard than a woman who speaks English as her first language. If a woman speaks Chinese as her first language, I don't lower my standards, and the fact that she speaks Chinese doesn't make me any more interested in her. The same standards apply whether your first language is English, Chinese, But if I meet a woman who has studied ancient Latin, now, no matter how ugly she may be, no matter that she may drink alcohol, eat meat, smoke cigarettes, and swear like a sailor, I'm interested. You see the problem? It's fucked up, but it's true. I went to the bookstore, ended up picking up these books. Before I walk in, there's a beautiful woman standing at the front counter, and she makes eye contact with me through the window, and I can see it coming. I can see that it's not even that she's interested in me, it's that she's interested in flirting with me. And guys, this does nothing for my ego. I've worked that kind of boring job. I know these young women are standing there all day. The fact that they want to flirt with me, it doesn't really mean I'm handsome. It doesn't really mean I'm charming or anything else. It just means that I'm better looking than the last 6 geriatric customers they had coming in who were looking for like gardening advice manuals or some shit. It's like, oh, okay. There's something more appealing or more interesting about me than the last 7 elderly couples who came in trying to buy cookbooks to give as Christmas presents. Whatever the fuck it is they're used to. I'm better looking than staring into space, because that's what they do for hours and hours in the job. They just pass the time staring into space. And I see her through the window. I tell right away what's coming. Okay, this is going to be one of these. I go down the stairs. I go to the section where the language books are. I'm looking at the Latin on the wall. 2 different good-looking women come up and ask if they can help me in any way, if I have any questions about Latin and Greek. section. And again, I'm not saying it's some kind of amazing chemistry. They're good-looking women, and right away I can tell whether it's just out of boredom, it's kind of flirtatious vibe going on there. And one of them, I say, look, you know what? There is something you can help me with. I ask a question that, frankly, only a specialist would ask, and only a specialist can answer. And she says, I'm going to go get the other one. She goes and gets this woman who is, in the parlance of our times, ugly. But this is a woman who studied Latin in university. And from this woman, I chat with her, I think for a longer length of time than I chatted with the other three women. Chat with her for quite a while. She has zero interest in me. There is zero flirtation going on. For all I know, she's married with kids. I don't know her story. I don't know anything about her. Right? There's absolutely nothing, no positive feedback on that. And she is not just ugly. She's ugly. But dude, she has a background in Latin and Greek. And I've got to tell you something. I'm interested. I'm more interested in her than these three other gorgeous creatures who've come up and flirted with me because they have nothing the fuck else to do. I get the books, I go to checkout, and at the checkout counter, I knew it was coming. The same girl who made eye contact with me and said some shit to me on the way in. Of course she flirts me on the way out. What the fuck else does she have to do with her life? My point is this. Today, for the first time, it really clicked why is my girlfriend was so hostile toward the possibility of my studying Latin. It's, on the one hand, Latin carries with it the threat that I'm going to become passionately committed to an area of studies so narrow and deep that it cuts me off from the more contemporary political focus, of the other projects in my life. Like, you're less interested in stand-up comedy, you're less interested in vegan activism, you're less interested in YouTube itself, you're less interested in everything in the world as it really exists here now because you're getting stuck into ancient Latin. Right. But then the other thing is, it's not the logic of saying, if my boyfriend is studying Japanese, which I already did, if my boyfriend is studying Chinese, Cambodian, Thai, Laotian, Spanish, that broadens his horizon for the women who may tempt him. Because when English is your first language, the horizon is already as broad as the fucking sky. It makes no difference if I learn Russian. It makes no difference if I learn Chinese or any of these other languages. The horizon is already fucking broad enough for a guy like me. Right? No. What's significant about Latin is that it brings me into the orbit of these other women who one way or another have a degree in classics, have a degree in library science. A lot of those library science girls, they also do Latin. They have some kind of scholarly background where they've got a toe in the ancient world. And then I am going to lower my standards and I'm going to be more interested in them than I otherwise would be if they spoke any other language, if they studied the other language. This is the question I have for you in the audience. If I wanted to do ancient Latin today, where in the world would I fucking do it? And I'm cynical as hell. Don't just tell me Rome if you don't actually know what the fuck you're talking about, if you haven't actually been to a language institute in Rome. Don't tell me this, don't tell me that. If I wanted to study ancient Latin, I think one way to do it is just the minimum effort thing. Like, I'm on the west coast of Canada, so you look at Vancouver and think, okay, is there somewhere good enough to squeak by in Vancouver? Another way to do it is to look at combining Latin with modern Spanish. There are many, many reasons why modern Spanish interests me, but fundamentally, Spanish is an American language. Within the United States of America, South America, Central America, this is one reason to do Spanish. Could I have a short period of my life in Spain, in Europe, Madrid, Barcelona, I don't know any of this, could I have a brief period of my life where I'm hitting the books on ancient Latin and modern Spanish at the same time, and where the study of each enriches the other? Okay, that's interesting. And then the other question is, just in terms of absolute excellence, is there anywhere worth talking about? And my assumption is no. Like, I don't think Vatican City has anything to fucking offer me for Latin. I don't think... Guys, I've been to Athens. Nobody even says Athens is a good place to study Greek, whether ancient Greek or modern Greek. That's the depressing fucking reality today. I glanced briefly at the language programs in Spain, modern Spain, not ancient Spain, modern Spain, continental Spain, European Spain, and I was shocked at how cheap they are. I had always assumed that if you wanted to learn Spanish, you would go to Mexico or somewhere further south. I don't know, you go to Venezuela. And no, in Spain, the tuition for language classes is unbelievably cheap. The tuition I was looking at for language classes in Spain is cheaper than learning Chinese in Taiwan, cheaper than learning Chinese in Hong Kong, cheaper than learning Chinese in Kunming. It's that cheap. So now obviously this reflects the fact that Spain, their government, has a sense of national pride, a sense of purpose in teaching the Spanish language, and that they're aware they have to compete with Mexico, they have to compete with Colombia, whatever. They have to compete with all of their former colonies to attract and retain those students. So there's a little bit of a deeper question here. Who today is competing in that way for Latin? I already looked into this for a lot of other languages, not just Chinese and the Asian languages mentioned. Obviously, Pali and Sanskrit, I looked into that for many years. Even languages like Tibetan, I've looked into that. It's interesting who is and who isn't serious about teaching a language like Tibetan. Obviously, Greek, both ancient Greek and modern Greek, I looked into. So the question I have for you in the audience, maybe there is someone who's going to find this video who will know. If you wanted to get into Latin, where in the world would you do it? Either in connection to the parallel study of a modern language like Spanish, or if you're willing to just buckle down and for a short time pursue ancient Latin as a thing in itself.